Good morning, everyone. I see there's still some stragglers coming in. I think this is okay. At one point, these are the beautiful presenters of this first session, but there will also be a slide at one point with a QR code. Take a look at it with your camera, and if you have any questions, then register them on Slido. We will use the questions in the following panel sessions, and if there is time, also in this session. So I hope yesterday that you enjoyed the banquet. I sure did, and had some good networking. This is a really amazing opportunity to connect with the space community, a yearly pleasure. So this session and the following session will focus on business opportunities in space and dual use. And I actually think that that's a slightly misleading title, but nevertheless, it still goes. My name is Niels Vejrup Carlsen. I have founded and operate today a venture capital fund called Final Frontier. It invests in early stage space and defense startups, mainly in the Nordics, Baltic, and Ukraine. So this topic is quite dear to my heart, what we're talking about today, because what we're talking about is actually about how to create the best possible ecosystem for space and dual-use companies to further innovation and growth in Europe. And when I say companies, I mean SMEs or startups. How can we help foster a lot of these companies that will drive Europe forward? Now, why is this topic important? And I think for those of you who were here yesterday, I hope most of you, we had many talks and also a good bar conversation, at least from my side afterwards, where it has become clear that over the last few years, space is not only about amazing science and exploration, it is definitely still that, and it's also still staggering long-term business opportunities. But it has become clear that it's crucial for Europe's strategic autonomy. So we have come to recognize access to launch to get things up in space, and also space-based assets, so having them up there, maintaining them, operating them, getting downstream down, as critical infrastructure, without which nothing works. So dual use and autonomy has become center stage, and this is quite a shift at this year's conference compared to last year, I must say. Very interesting shift in development, and I personally think it's a positive one because it means that in order to achieve autonomy, Europe must become a global leader in space. If we're not, we don't have autonomy. This, by the way, includes human space flight, but let's not talk about that today. Or maybe Andreas will. If you look at the vision statements, this is clear. So everybody from ESA's 2040 strategy, the appointment of Andreas Kubilius as the EU Commissioner for Defense and Space, and also in the vision statement recently issued by USPA, they all state that we need to become a global leader in space. And one of the things that they all mention, there are various themes, is that we need to have a better ecosystem for fostering growth innovation among smaller companies that can come up, compete with the bigger companies, and provide faster innovation. So we need better European cooperation and much more public funding, by the way. We heard yesterday from Anders Fogh Rasmussen that US outspent us 8 times. So it's really nice that we also heard yesterday that USPA, or EU Commission, plans or hopes to increase the budget 5x, which is amazing. We need more competitiveness and faster innovation in the industry. And this requires a strong startup ecosystem, which also requires a lot of private capital, which is another topic for this day's 2 sessions, or this morning's 2 sessions. So how do we help foster SMEs and startups by public funding, but also by private capital? Now, the 5 presenters in this first session that you saw before, and I'll introduce them as they come along, they provide a setting for the following panel debate around this in the next session, but also in these sessions or in these presentations right now. I have said that you should register your questions on Slido. I'm not sure that there will be much time for questions between the presentations. If so, I will ask them, but they will be stored and used for the panel session that follows. Now, the first speaker this morning is arguably one of Denmark's most famous person. Everybody knows him. He's in all the, let's say, magazines, and is a source of inspiration for young people and elderly and middle-aged people in Denmark. So it's an honor. He had the pleasure of sitting at my table yesterday, and I was just impressed that he's still not tired of sort of having to interface with so many people that look up to him as a role model in some sense. Now, so it's an honor to have Andreas Mogensen, astronaut from ESA, to give sort of a global, I hope, inspirational perspective on Europe's role in the global space economy industry, including SMEs. Please welcome Andreas to the stage.
Well, thank you, and good morning. I have the pleasure of kicking off today's morning session by, of course, talking about human spaceflight, which might seem a little odd given that we're talking about business opportunities and dual space. But let me make the case also for human spaceflight. And I'd like you to all start by imagining the future just 10 years out, 2035, where the United States has sent American astronauts back to the lunar surface for the first time since 1972. Chinese astronauts are also exploring the lunar surface. India has a space station in low Earth orbit and a crew transportation vehicle, and are regularly sending Indian astronauts into space to conduct research. Japan also has astronauts on the lunar surface thanks to their pressurized rover that they're building for NASA's Artemis program. And the question is, where is Europe? And I would say we have to be there too, for the simple reason that we want to, or we need to, inspire the next generation of young Europeans. If the next generation of young Europeans don't see Europe being visionary and having bold ambitions equal to the bold ambitions of the United States, China, and India, we will have a problem keeping them in Europe, because we live in a global interconnected world where the best and the brightest and the most ambitious young people can seek their fortunes wherever they are inspired to do so. Like I did, they can go abroad and study, they can get jobs abroad. They don't necessarily have to stay in Europe, but we need them to stay in Europe. And for them to stay in Europe, we need to inspire them. We need to show them that we in Europe are ambitious, are visionary, and have big dreams about the future. And that's what human spaceflight can do. And there are business opportunities related to human spaceflight. We are slowly starting to see that also on board the International Space Station, where we've been working in what we might call the old paradigm, where agencies like ESA and NASA own the technology, they own the development. If we want to do a scientific experiment on the ISS, we typically will award a contract to develop the hardware. We will send it into space, we'll conduct the experiment. But even today, we're slowly starting to see a shift where we will say that we want to procure a specific surface and then leave it up to companies to decide how to deliver that service. And on board the Columbus Laboratory, we, for example, have a facility called Ice Cubes where we can procure services from, but the company behind this Ice Cubes facility is also free to sell their services to private actors like Axiom when they send private astronaut flights to the International Space Station. So we are starting to see a shift in paradigm, and of course the best example of that is NASA's commercial cargo delivery service and commercial crew service. Now you might ask, who's interested in procuring these services? Well, already today, when it comes to commercial crew, we have seen 7 private astronaut flights, 3 free-flying missions to low Earth orbit, Inspiration 4, Polaris Dawn, and most recently Fram-2. And then we've seen 4 private astronaut flights to the International Space Station, one of which arrived while I was up there and brought my Swedish ESA colleague, Marcus went to the ISS for 3 weeks, and we had a terrific time on board, working hard on European science and technology development. Well, what about cargo? I mean, surely no one's interested in buying cargo, and it's true there hasn't been any commercial procurement of cargo, although that might change in the next few years because we in Europe find us in the unenviable, and I would even go as far as to say unacceptable situation of perhaps having to procure commercial cargo services from a US company in order to meet our obligations to the international partners. In order to pay for our use of the ISS, we might have to deliver cargo to the ISS on behalf of NASA. And of course, that's not something that we ever want to do. I mean, sending money across the Atlantic Ocean to US companies. We want to keep money in Europe, which is also why we are currently developing a European commercial cargo delivery service, which will hopefully see its first demonstration flight to the ISS in 2029. There are currently 2 companies working to provide this service, the exploration company and Thales Alenia Space Italy. And the difference between this and previous procurement is that both companies are required to provide at least 40% of co-funding. And so they will also be able to sell their cargo delivery service on the market. Of course, they will need an anchor customer, and that will be ESA. But in addition to delivering cargo for us, they will also be able to sell it to other users in the future. And the destination for that cargo, hopefully, will be a commercial space station. The idea for the future is that ESA and our international partners like NASA will focus on pushing the frontiers, returning humans to the moon, and then we will leave or let private companies take over low Earth orbit, or at least to operate in low Earth orbit. We still want to be able to do science and technology development in low Earth orbit, but we no longer want to operate these space stations on our own. And so the hope is that a commercial entity will be able to operate a commercial space station where ESA and other international space agencies can send astronauts to in order to conduct science and technology. And there are at least 4 companies in the US currently working on plans for commercial space stations under a NASA program. It's also very clear that Europe wants to be and needs to be a part of this. We don't want to be in a situation in the future where we pay cash for use of these services. So these companies are also actively looking for European participation. Now the question is, what sort of participation will that entail? Well, at least some sort of European involvement in terms of either hardware development, perhaps developing life support systems or similar equipment, or perhaps even an entire module. Now, because of the current uncertainty when it comes to human spaceflight, we are also studying what it would take for ESA and Europe to lead a commercial space station effort. In the same way that NASA is working with private companies, we might also in Europe do a similar effort if it turns out that there is a need, simply because of the uncertainty. So we are looking at ways for Europe to participate on some level, all the way from delivering subsystems to a module, or perhaps even leading the entire effort with private companies, because the operating paradigm here is commercial services. But of course they need an anchor customer, and that's where ESA would step in. Another excellent example of this paradigm shift is our new European Launcher Challenge, where we're also trying to diversify the launcher market and bring in further actors. And so there really is a significant potential for business opportunities, even when it comes to human spaceflight. And I realize these rockets won't take astronauts on board, but perhaps it's just the first step. The ambition at ESA, at least, we still need to convince our member states, of course, but our ambition is that the commercial cargo delivery service that we are currently developing will eventually evolve into a commercial crew capability as well. So one of the requirements in our contracts with the exploration company and Thales Alenia Space Italy is that they have the potential to further develop the vehicles into also carrying crew in the future. And our hope is that at our next ministerial meeting in 2028, we will have convinced the European member states to support a commercial crew vehicle. And the reason for that, again, is that we want to build up European expertise. We want to use European taxpayer money in Europe. If we want to do science and technology development on a commercial space station in the future, we have to be able to access that space station and also pay for our involvement in some way without, or at least by minimizing the cash transfer to US companies. And so the commercial cargo delivery service is one way to pay for use of a commercial space station, because that will be heavily dependent, of course, on cargo from Earth. And if we can provide that cargo, great. That'll pay for at least some of our usage. And the same if we have a crew vehicle, then at least we won't have to buy launch services from a US provider like we do today on the private astronaut missions from Axiom. So this is really our strategy to develop European capability, to make European companies competitive in order to compete on the open market. If we have a European crew vehicle, a commercial European crew vehicle, there are many other countries in the world that also want to participate in private astronaut flights. Perhaps they will buy launch services from Europe, from a European company rather than a US company. And we see a huge interest, certainly in ESA, for more astronaut flights. This is our core of career astronauts, the class from 2009 that I'm part of, and then our new class from 2022. But as something brand new in 2022, we also selected a class of reserve astronauts, astronauts that are not hired permanently as ESA staff, as career astronauts, but that maintain their professional jobs and then become astronauts or trained as astronauts and fly a mission when there is a opportunity for their countries to buy one. And I have to say, in 2020, 2021, when we were discussing this idea, I was a little bit skeptical if they would ever get to fly, but I'm very positively surprised that 2 of this class have already flown to space before even any of the career astronauts have flown. Of course, Markus Wendt joined me on the International Space Station in 2023, and Sławomir Uznański completed the 4th private Axiom flight this summer. And there are already discussions underway between several other European countries and private companies. So I'm sure that we will see more of these reserve astronauts fly in the near-term future. And of course, the hope is, or the expectation, strong expectation is that once a commercial space station is available, there will still be a strong interest from European member states, but also from other countries who haven't traditionally been part of the International Space Station to do human spaceflight missions, which is why commercial activities within human spaceflight in Europe is also so important. Thank you.
Thank you, Andreas. Maybe one quick question.
Sure.
I know it's a bad one, actually, but in your mind, I mean, because there are many opportunities, and it was nice to see that lots of initiatives, what's the main impediment, you think, to, let's say, Europe taking that stage of human spaceflight?
I mean, convincing our member states to support our bold visions. ESA is run by 23 member states, and we have to convince them that what we think are good ideas are actually good ideas. We had a human-rated crew vehicle in development, or in the initial phases of development, about 30 years ago, the Hermes space vehicle. Unfortunately, it was cancelled due to lack of support. But imagine if we'd had that European capability in 2011 when the US space shuttle was retired and NASA no longer had the capacity to send astronauts to and from space. And for 10 years, NASA and the rest of the world had to rely on the Russian Soyuz, just like I did in 2015 on my first spaceflight. If we had had a European crew vehicle, we would have been the primary provider of crew launch services for NASA for those 10 years at least. So I think there are a lot of opportunities for Europe to
super inspirational. Thank you, and a good answer. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you. Now, the next two speakers will provide perspectives on how the public organizations, USPA and ESA, support the inclusion of growth of SMEs. And just maybe one comment before inviting the first speaker to the stage is that I was really happy to see in Andreas' slides that actually some of these companies in these major projects toward cargo delivery and human spaceflight, and also the launches, are what you could call startups. They have, of course, matured a little bit, but these were small companies 3-5 years ago. And there are also some incumbents and industrial players. That's great. That's how it should be. Competition is great. Now, please welcome the next speaker is Fiammetta Diani. I hope I pronounced that correctly. Head of Market Downstream and Innovation, USPA, to the stage. Welcome, Dian.
Thank you. Thank you. So, good morning. So, I have the honor to be the second speaker after the most famous person in Denmark. So, but I became a bit famous also yesterday, because for the ones that you didn't notice, I was one of the two ladies arriving late to the dinner and waving at the wrong entrance during the speeches. So, not for a good reason, but yeah. In the end, I was on time for the description of the food, so that was important. But yesterday, you heard, we need more money. And you also heard from my, let's say, commander-in-chief, the commissioner, that we are putting more money on the table. But I'm here today to say another thing. We need more entrepreneurs. We need more brave, young, and also not young people that decide not to choose for the comfort of a, let's say, stable job, but to go and invest their energies and their life in space. So this is why I'm here today. And I'm here today, I hope, to attract new entrepreneurs from this vibrant ecosystem, and also to tell you how we can support these entrepreneurs and these startups and SME to grow in Europe today. So let me start saying that one of the most important things for space entrepreneurs today is to have a market, because we can support them, venture capitalists can give them money, but in the end they need customers, so they need really to have their market ready. And this is a bit what we are doing at my agency in USPA since some years, is to help create this market around space. Not only the upstream part we heard about, but also the downstream part, so how to use our EU space data, and we have the best-in-class system in the world today for navigation, Earth observation, and hopefully soon also for telecommunication. And we are really working on daily basis with the different market segments and user community, so that this market can really be the arrival point for our entrepreneurs. And we work around all the so-called components of our EU space program. And we do believe also that it's impossible to do a strategy, a business plan, or to pitch to investors if you don't know the market. And so we invested quite a lot to build this market intelligence and also user technology intelligence. And we publish, there will be the new one coming soon next year, the market report that give you a forecast of the next decade, so for 10 years, of what are the revenues in more than 15 market segments that use space, from transport to energy, climate services, resilience services. For the moment, we don't cover directly defense, but it may come in the future. So I invite you to have a look to these interesting insights. We don't have the crystal ball, but we think it's the most similar thing we were able to build along the years. And many investors, they use it to evaluate, to do the due diligence. So I invite also the entrepreneurs to use it to make their own consideration and business plan. But let me go a bit more in detail to what we can do to support this new space ecosystem in Europe. So we have created an initiative, it's called Cassini. I'm sure some of you heard about. We are running it now till 2021. And I think this really contributed to create a new ecosystem in Europe. We have supported more than, or let's say, our network is composed by more than 1,000 startups related to space in Europe, and we have directly supported 300 startups in their journey to the success. And we cover with Cassini the full cycle, so from the early stage with the hackathons, with also EU Space Academy that help the entrepreneurs to understand space business. We even created a space camps for the younger generation. But then we go up and we go to the acceleration phase. So we have our business accelerator and Cassini challenge that permit to the startups to arrive to products, prototypes and products, and to get prepared for the investors. We have the matchmaking, in which we favor the connection between investors and startups. And there we have a network of around 40 to 50 investors in Europe. When I started in 2021, we have 4. So the change is big, and I'm very proud of this also private capitals that got engaged in space. You will hear also from my colleagues from European Space Agency after a similar, let's say, I think, proudness about these results. And when we accelerated the companies, then there we needed also to back up and to permit to these investors to be there. So we really worked to do capacity building so they understand how to invest in space. And this, I think it's very important to close our journey. And we are going to continue with Cassini. So it was really a success in this financial perspective, and we are already preparing, the European Commission is preparing the next financial perspective. And but what does it mean for your reality? So I was checking how are we doing in Denmark, and apparently we are doing pretty well, or you are doing pretty well, because we have 14 startups that we are part of our program in Cassini, and these startups altogether, they raised more than 50 million, thanks also, I hope, to the participation to our programs of private capitals and the public capitals, but private one is always the biggest one. And so I'm very happy to see these numbers on the screen, and I hope they can be inspiration for new startups. Let me maybe quote a couple of them. So Sternula, that you heard yesterday, they have been part of our Cassini Accelerator and Matchmaking, and just a few weeks ago they had their follow-up seed funding. And Sky Puzzler, that they have a digital air traffic control system, and they were winner of our Cassini Challenge, our main competition. And they, in August, they had their seed round, and they entered also in the European Innovation Council Accelerator. So overall, on top of this, I have to say that the Nordic countries in general and the Baltics are doing pretty fine. And we calculated that they raised our companies that are part of our initiative from Nordic countries and Baltics. They raised more than 130 millions of private capital, so quite a good result also at regional level. And but let me also say another thing about Denmark. We have been in June, and it was not the first time, to Tech Barbecue, and there we met with the community, and it's one of our entry points, so I'm very happy that we repeated this experience along the years, and we will be there again. And there we cooperate also with the European Space Agency Business Incubation Center here in Denmark. That is one of our entry points, and I would like to thank them also for their support. But this is not all. I mean, we just don't work directly with the startups. As I said before, we do believe that it's important to, let's say, really see the utilization of U-Space and create a market. And for this, we have also set up a set of demonstrators and business cases with the utilization of our technology with commercial and business users. Especially for Earth observation, we believe that we are still a bit far from the commercial and business users. It's always the business of tomorrow. We would like to make it the business of today. So that's why we worked with a lot of private final customers. You see here an impressive list of them, including utility companies, commodity manufacturers, banks, insurance company. And we work with them so that they can use Copernicus and Earth observation in their daily business. We put startups inside and SME inside the pilot, so that then this can become their future or current customers. And these are some of the providers. But, as I said, I'm here to tell you the opportunities, so let me be concrete. So if I'm a student in Aalborg University, if I'm a startupper, if I'm an entrepreneur or SME, where do I find this support of USPA today? Not tomorrow when the big money will come, but today. So we have 3 main activities that we are doing that are available now. The first one, we support the development of application and innovative products with Horizon Europe. We support the development of key user technology, meaning chipset receivers, especially for navigation, with our Fundamental Elements program. So this is more a technological one. And Cassini, as I mentioned. So let me say that for Horizon Europe, we have an opportunity exactly now, because we are opening next week, but it's already published, our first call of Horizon Europe. So you can already go now, check it, and build your innovative ideas in 2 main areas. The first one, I'm sorry for the many words, but I thought that it's important that then you can also get it after and go through it. So our first topic is related to the utilization of EU space data. So we are looking for innovative solutions in the area of energy, climate, green finance and insurance, and livable cities. We want to overcome a bit the fragmentation of the market, because now we have many small solutions for small customers. We want to see here like large-scale type of solution. And then the second area is related to resilience. We are here in dual-use panel. I will have the possibility to speak about it a bit later. But without even going to defense, I think we have clear that we need to increase the resilience in Europe to different situations, so the security critical operation, but also our critical infrastructure that are under threat, as you have seen very well in the Nordic countries, and crisis management. So here we are looking for solutions that use our EU space in this direction. And last but not least, next opportunity in Cassini. So all our tools are available all the time. So you can come back to me, and depending my team, depending on your stage, if you are early stage, later stage, and so on. It will make you an interview, and then it will put you in contact with the right instruments, the right investors. Nevertheless, we have an open opportunity now that is upcoming, that is for early stage, so I thought it was important for this context. That is our next Cassini hackathons. We are already at the 10th one. We do 2 per year. And it will happen in 10 different locations in Europe. And you can find all the information on our Cassini website. And last but not least, we are having our what we call user consultation platform and space downstream days on the beginning of December in Prague, where the headquarters of USPA is. Nice place. If you come in December, also there is Christmas market. So that's why also we do it there. So here we put together our user communities and of 7 market segments in this case. We gather from them the needs, the new trends, and we shape the services of tomorrow based on it. But these users are also potential customers of companies. So we decided to have our, let's say, downstream industry days for SMEs, startups, companies that want to come, meet with the users, understand better our open opportunities that will still be there, and so on. So you are invited in Prague at the beginning of December. So I stop it here because I will be back also in the panel and we can discuss a bit more in depth. So thanks for your attention.
Thank you. Thank you, Fiammetta. And I can definitely recommend participating in the Entrepreneurship Days in Prague. Amazing event and a strong initiative, Cassini, I must say. The next speaker on the stage is Luca Del Monte. And he is heading up commercialization efforts at ESA and has his view on this as well.
Thank you very
Welcome
much.
to the stage.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Thank you very much, and it's a pleasure to be back again on this stage after last year. And in the interest of time, let's say next year, or at least one of the next editions, I hope that I will be on the same stage together with my colleague Fiammetta here, because otherwise you will get confused after this presentation that I will give to you, because I will present many things that are really overlapping and are very similar to what Fiammetta has already presented and introduced, of course with a slight different twist, because ESA is a different agency with respect to USPA, but still we are going in the same direction. So don't be surprised if you are sometimes a bit confused. I mean, for the time being, there is a proliferation of activities, but maybe we will have some time in the panel afterwards together with the Fiammetta to explain you how we are working together to streamline a little bit all these things that are developing. But first of all, let's start, let's say, why we are focusing on commercialization. I mean, because this is a given for granted, let's say, but there are big reasons behind. And there are internal, external reasons. First of all, I would say, let's start from an analysis of European industry. European industry is in a very specific situation with respect to its competitors, in particular competitors across the pond. The fact that they are not benefiting of a, let's say, solid captive market. So our industry needs to be extremely competitive on the worldwide commercial market in order to win contracts. That's not the case for our colleagues on the other side of the Atlantic Ocean, of course, as you can understand. And who says being competitive means being innovative? And this is why we need to introduce innovation. And as you all know, innovation is everywhere. However, innovation is often more concentrated in the smaller business, in the startup environment, because it's by definition more agile type of environment. Innovation in the large corporation is a very structured process, and as such, it is less agile. let's say, is more structures and takes more time. So we need to hit quickly the market, and for this time, we need to introduce new players in our ecosystem. And then there are also internal reasons that are typical of ESA, but are strictly much related to what I just said, is the fact we need to implement our own institutional missions in Europe in a cost-effective way. And, in a period of restricted budget, let's say, we don't have the luxury, let's say, to pay too much for our missions. So this is why we need more cost-efficient, more innovative type of approach. And this can only come from the introduction of innovation. So commercialization for us is not a goal, it's a tool. It's a tool to attract, develop a new ecosystem that is capable of helping and enabling us, let's say, achieving our own institutional goal. And here it comes the difficulty, because ESA, historically, like many other institutions in space, is not structured, is not used to work in the new space type of environment. And this is requiring a deep shift in our mindset, in the mindset of our technical officers, of our people. Let's say, when you handle taxpayers' money, you have an obsession, and the obsession is maximization of performance, minimization of risk of failure. That's all. Wherever you go in the world, you work for NASA, you work for ESA, it's the same thing. Taxpayers' money, you cannot afford that your rocket blow on the launch pad because it's taxpayers' money. But when you work in the commercial world, this has no meaning. For you, the only thing is customer satisfaction, return on investment, time to market. So these are completely different parameters. And when you are in a public institution and you deal with actors that are this different mindset, you have to develop new tools, new way of engaging with them. And this is why, I was going a little bit too fast. This is why we have developed new ways of dealing with let's say, new space type of players in order to become, in certain case, just a customer, in certain case, a partner, in other case, maybe an enabler of their business plan. And let me try to explain to you a little bit better. A customer, you may say, well, obviously, that's the typical approach now that you buy a service. Yes and no. You may say it's typical, but it's not that straightforward for an agency which is a research and development type of agency. For a research and development type of agency, nothing is perfect. Nothing is exactly as you want to be. You are always pushing the frontier of perfection, while in a commercial world, there is the concept of good enough. So becoming a customer can mean that you buy something that is just good enough. Becoming a partner means that you are making, basically, you are giving a lot of trust to companies, because you are going to become partner in their business. You are becoming an anchor tenant. You are procuring, as Andreas was mentioning before, services, maybe for a cargo return or a crew vehicle, from companies who have not developed the infrastructure yet. So it's an act of trust, and you want them to bring in private money. Andreas was mentioning 40% of co-funding. This means that these companies then will try to resell the same products and service on the commercial market. This means that they have to go fast. They have to satisfy their investors. And this means that if we want to allow them to go faster, then we also have to, let's say, adapt our style, for instance, in terms of the project reviews that now are becoming more like stage gate type of reviews, success or fail, and so forth and so on. So becoming partner is also an important mind shift. And the third one, I would say, is more related to the follow-up of this presentation, and where ESA is not at all projected to become a customer, but is more an enabler of a business plan. How many companies we saw downstream? I mean, in Fiammetta slides before, you saw the logos of so many hundreds of companies that are dealing with furnitures, IKEA, or coffee, like Illy or others more. I mean, ESA is never going to become a customer of those companies, not at all. But we want to enable our new space ecosystem to provide services, products, technologies for them. So we are more enabler. And when you are an enabler and you're not a customer, why should we impose our own standards to these companies? No way. I mean, maybe we want to provide them access to our test facilities, to our technical knowledge, to our engineers. So technical support, but hands off. It's their own responsibility, it's their own business plan. So let's do it. And in order to adapt to this very different type of players around, we have developed a range of services and support that we deploy across the entire life cycles of companies, let's say starting from very early stage up to more mature type of companies. And according to the type of maturity, you may get services like protection of intellectual property. Sometimes you start just with an idea and you want to protect it in order, if you want to do business with that. And you know, IPR and intellectual property rules are extremely expensive type of services and very complicated type of services. So you may want to get support on that. We do it, we provide it. Once you have your idea, maybe you're a brilliant engineer, but you don't know a lot about business. You want to get some business incubation. Now, we have business incubation, business acceleration, connection with venture capitals, connection with our programs, connection with the market. Let's see step by step all of these type of services. Let's say the first one of the most famous one, is the Business Incubation Center Networks. It has been ranked last year #2 worldwide by Financial Times. So in terms of all business incubation, and not just for space, but in generic terms. Nowadays, we have more than 100 physical incubation sites, more than 35 business incubation centers, and almost 2,000 companies who have been incubated in the past 20 years. So it's a big alumni type of community, and we have now a pace of more or less 200 companies intake per year. So these are obviously, I mean, one of those that we are proudest of is here in Denmark. And we have regular intake every year. You can apply, and once you are in, you get 2 years of business and technical support. You also get 40 hours of technical support from our engineers. You get no dilution type of grant, so it's a zero equity type of support. I mean, we are very generous on that standpoint, but more important for us is also that you get in contact, you get exposure to our network of investors and our program. So it's a very effective type of program. Next to that, we have developed another type of network that is very, very new, brand new. I think it exists just for, now it's been there for 1 year and a half, but it's developing super quickly. It's called the PhilabNet. It's a network of laboratories. Each of these laboratories focusing on a different aspect. Very close to here in Norway, in Tromsø, we have, for instance, a PhilabNet focusing on Arctic. Under each and every single aspect of what Arctic means. Can be climate change, can be telecommunication, can be the challenges of navigation at high latitudes, you name it. So all these laboratories, and we have 11 of them currently in operations, on cyber, on industrialization, Arctic, climate change, big data, artificial intelligence, you name it. Each of them offers to the entrepreneurs, companies, can be small, medium, even large companies. We have companies like Airbus also that are customer of our PhilabNet that can apply. They get in the laboratory and they get funding, they get access to academia, industry, and ESA technical expertise in order to develop their service, product, technology, commercially oriented. So PhilabNet is also a very important development which is there to support the development of commercial type of ideas. EPIC is a partnership program where we basically offer to our companies, the companies in our alumni community, which as I told you is quite big nowadays, the access to services offered by companies, very, very well-known companies like Nova Space, ISI, Airbus, OVH Cloud, and you name it. We offer services of these companies at a much better condition than market for the period of belonging to our alumni community. And this is a win-win because it offers obviously the opportunity to our companies to access to the very, let's say, premium type of services offered by these companies at, let's say, better than market conditions. And for the companies, the large one obviously is a way to connect with a future base of customers. Let's go. Okay. Technology transfer broker, that's also an historical service that we offer. Obviously, the idea here is that you are developing your product and technology in the space business, but we all know that space is a relatively small sector, so we want you to be strong enough, to be solid enough to survive the downturn of a space market that is very small. And in this way, we support, and when I say support, means financially support, the development of that technology, the spin-off of that technology in other sectors that are outside the space domain. We have recently also started to work on the spinning in, which is way more complicated for us, but spin-off is working very well, and we support and we pay for demonstration studies, feasibility study, demonstration, and scale-up industrial capability for this technology transfer. Once your product is market ready, is, let's say, TRL 8 or 9, usually, historically, the support of institutions stops. And then you have to go on the market on your own. Well, with the marketplace, we are trying to do the extra mile. So we are accompanying our companies also in connecting with new customers and selling their first product on new and emerging and developing markets. So this is an extremely successful program. We have started with very small at the last ministerial, but after the ministerial we got additional subscription by member states, and the impact is huge. Let's say with just 21 million of co-funding at the beginning, we managed to help our companies in raising more than 200 million in investment. So that's important to keep in mind that investors will come if and only if they see perspective of real contracts with real customers and not just the grants of institutions like ESA or EU. One of the last but very important point is the development also of a network with the community of investors. Maybe we will have time later on today to talk a little bit more about that. Today we have more than 70 professional investors, venture capital funds, private equities, some banks that is in our network. What we do for them is that we sit in the advisory board and we help them in better understanding the technology and the market. Of course, we don't express ourselves on the company, that would be a conflict of interest, but this is helping the 70 and more investors in pledging more money in the ecosystem. And we connect them through investors forum and pitch days. Okay, we have also investors, banks, and last but not least, competition. So we have now developing more and more the challenge-based innovation. So we organize competition for our startups, in particular to help you guys going on the global markets. So far this year we have run competition to support export in India, Japan, Singapore, Australia, and now will be next month in UAE. So also this is very important. We are bringing companies there. We are developing commercial agreement with institutions in those countries to help you also land safely and attract partners, customers, and investors in those countries. So thanks a lot, and I hope that next year we will be together with Fiammetta here. Ciao.
Thank you. Wonderful to hear that you have so much at heart and so many good initiatives. I hope to be able to dive into some of them in the coming panel session. We're a little short of time, so I'll speed on to the next speakers, and hopefully I can conquer a little bit of your coffee break. The two next speakers will provide perspectives of the same topic, but from the commercial side. So I would like to welcome Stefan Romer from OHB to the stage to give his perspective. Thank you.
Thanks a lot. So Luca already have prepared the perfect ground for me. So like yesterday, as we have discussed the industry role in the European programs, what I want to do is I worked 20 years for SMEs and research organization, now called New Space. At this time, the word was even not existing. So I'm sometimes joking that people like Lars Almindo or Søren Pedersen and myself here in Denmark are the old guys of New Space, but let's see like that one. But I wanted to use this experience also to show you a little bit from both sides of the table, the cooperation between large system integrators and also the SMEs and research organizations and things like that. But I also wanted to start to give you a short wrap up what OHB is doing, because I cannot imagine why, but I got multiple times the question what OHB is doing. Also, you all use dozens of times per day the systems that OHB have created for OISPA, for EU, and things like that. So sorry for that. Let us say OHB is already a little bit older companies, comes originally from the maritime domain, but the real, let us say, start of OHB was in 1985, as people who were a little bit bored from the classical space industry created something what you would call today new space, because it was exactly 5 people in a garage in the harbor of Bremen starting. So today you would call it startup. At this time it was a classical German family business and things like that. So, meanwhile, we go a lot. We are one of the 3 large system integrators. The others are Airbus Defence and Space and TAS, of course. Nearly 4,000 people, meanwhile, so the numbers are a little bit old. And 1,200 of that in Bremen, in different companies. We also have the honor to host this year the ESA Ministerial Conference in Bremen for that, because Bremen is one of the 3 space cities in Germany, and we typically have a turnover of 2 billion per year. We are very European-based, with acceptations of Guyana and also Chile. And you see, we are not in Denmark. This has pros and cons for you. I will come to it a little bit later. Yeah? So, and even if OHB is known by people, OHB is typically known by the satellites. Yeah, because in the past we were focusing on the space segment, but as I said already yesterday, the space segment is nothing without the application. Yeah? No, if you go especially to the commercial market, no one cares how the satellite look like. Yeah? They want to have services, they want to have solutions for their issues and things like that, and that's why meanwhile we are in the whole chain, so we do satellites till also applications. So for instance, one of our companies is one of the German leaders in precision farming and also helping insurances and the stock exchange with different things. So therefore also the OHB group is divided in 3 business units. The space system, what is in principle the upstream. The digital, what are all the applications, starting from energy grids, precision farming, automotive, till also, let us say, protecting airports against jamming and spoofing, like we are doing for Romața, the Romanian airspace authority, including also some things like our venture capital arm. And then we have aerospace. This is in principle the launcher contributions of the OHB group. So if you look to that, you know every company has the break-even points or where you make a big jump. Of course, the first one was the takeover by the Fuchs family in the 80s. Then the second one was, as we were once, the Saar Lupe, the radar reconnaissance satellites for the German Bundeswehr. And the third one was, of course, and that is what you use every day, the Galileo satellites. So all flying FOC Galileo satellites are built by OHB in Bremen. Still 4 there. Well, let's see. And then, of course, now, meanwhile, we are doing similar things. So satellites, as said, launchers. So a lot of the Ariane is built by us in MTA. And you already have seen in the other presentations our wildcard in the launcher segment. That is the rocket factor Aalborg, what is also belonging to us. And then we, in the digital domain, we are doing a lot from the operations also in the launch platforms and other things. So I will skip this one. This is the classical domains where you find our satellites. And here it comes also a little bit to Denmark, because our satellites range from typically the series from 5 kilograms to 4 tons. Of course, we also build sometimes wonderful ESA science satellites, but they are typically the one kind of, like Plato, or in future also the LISA mission. But this is where we are, and especially, of course, in the smaller area, we are already working a lot with the Danish industry, like with GomSpace, Space Inventors, or also Therma. So, okay, that's a little bit to the wrap-up in which domains we are. Now we came to the philosophy, how we are working, especially with SMEs and research. And that's, from my personal experience in my history, also a very different kind of working between the 3 different primes, because OHB is not vertical organized. So we copy a little bit the German automotive approach. We are doing the system architectures, the end-to-end architectures, the unique selling points that we need, but depending on the satellite, 80% of the satellite is not built by any OHB group member. Now we are integrating that. Why we are doing it like this one? Because we need to focus with our full effort on the end-to-end architecture, also that the different parts in this whole chain are working together. Because if you are not, for instance, in D2D, also take a look into the car terminals, then the car terminal is very cheap, but then you need RST mobile satellites in space. No one can pay for the CapEx. If you do the other way around, the satellite cheap and the car terminal too expensive, all the car industry will say to you, there at the door. Yeah? So that is why we focus there, and also, of course, a big organization like OHB is not the best powerhouse in transferring new ideas into technology and products, and for that we need the SMEs. It's perhaps also our German heritage, because, let's say, Germany is relying a lot on SMEs. A lot of SMEs in Germany are hidden champions, the same like here in Denmark. And that's why also our percentages of SME partners in our satellite projects are typically even far beyond the requirements from the Commission and ESA. So let's come to the different program lines, or let's say environments. Of course, Luca has already talked a lot about the things that ESA is doing. Let's say, in the ESA program, this is a very important tool for us as OHB, but also for our partners to bring new technologies in life and things like that, especially due to the fact that in Europe, still the market is very institutional. If you look to the end customer, it's relatively clear into the things, and there also the profit margins are not very high because it needs to be cheap, things like that. But that means on the other side, ESA is helping the LSIs, but also the space community to develop new technologies and things like that, because the return of invest could be, if not, especially an issue for the smaller programs. So ESA also, the ESA programs typically are geo-return programs. So it's also a little bit a protective environment for newcomers in space, because if your delegation decides to put money in, they get the money out of the program. And last but not least, also very important, especially for startups, your IPR are typically protected. That's not every time true in the EU programs, but it's every time in the ESA programs. ESA is allowed to use it for their own programs, but the commercialization is on your side. So that is why we are using a lot with our with participation of SMEs, typically technology development programs, the ARTIS, the TRP program, the GSTP program, now also the new sandbox program that Lauren Chaffar has presented yesterday also, future enough in the navigation for new equipment, subsystems and things like that, and also the business programs of ESA, like the NAVIS, the D2D program to develop from use cases that perhaps you have on ground if you are a data processing company or working for other domains into that, to bring it then into the space and also combine it with the different things. A little bit different is in the EU programs. So the EU programs are typically best practice. That means best value for money, whatever it is, will win the contract. That means also it's not in protected environment. So it could be in a program that even if Denmark is paying in, not so many money comes out. It's a challenge, especially also for startups, because also there is typically big penalties if you deliver late. Because like I say, imagine if OISPA is ordering Galileo satellites and you deliver it 5 years too late or something like that, and the degradation of the system starts, is an issue. And that's, of course, for us as an LSI, and also pushing us to hand penalties through. So it's bigger programs, meanwhile, from the money than ESA. It's also focusing on full operational constellations, so means really operational things, but it comes with a challenge. Yeah? But there are also, of course, technology developments like Horizon, EDA, EDF. But unfortunately, sometimes there your IPRs are not protected. So it's nice programs, but have some backdoors. And then, of course, we have the defense programs. I mean, yesterday we already named this new 35 billion program of Germany, but also, as said by the commissioner correctly, no single country can do everything. And luckily, Germany and Denmark has a lot of common interests. Baltic Sea, Atlantic, Northern Sea. Atlantic at minimum as long as Greenland is Danish. So that means there's a lot of opportunities. And let's say Germany, of course, has a navy, but Denmark has a much longer naval history and things like that. So we most likely can learn a lot from you because, let's say, small but beautiful, that is Denmark from German point of view. So let's see also there in this. There's of course an entrance hurdle that is every time the security things. Yeah, so sometimes the programs are classified, you need classified people with NATO or EU secret clearance and also then the facilities. There we can help. This is what we are doing in the other programs on the daily work to help you, because to have certified people for classified programs is a short way, but to have the facilities for that is a big issue. And Bremen is not so far away. Bremen is every time worth the travel, so we can do it in the work together. So, and then also, I was yesterday already in this short startup growth meeting, but it was in parallel to the more famous EU session where I was running down, so to join there my place into the thing, so also to hear that. There are two things what OHB is doing. Yeah? We understand ourselves as a strategic partner of the SMEs and the science community. Why? Because, as said, 80% of our satellites comes from satellite components and equipment comes from outside the OHB group. That means what we are doing are two different things. For instance, if there's an ESA program for the commercialization, we are there, if we are interested in your project, in your technology, the so-called end customer. We join early stage projects to secure that the things that you are developing are fitting into the end-to-end architectures that are planned for commercial or military or EU ESA programs. Yeah? Be it best example in the moment, Leo PNT. Yeah? So we are one of the primes for that. And of course, there are the two big guys in the team, that is GMV and OHB, but a lot of the satellite components, because it's small satellites, are from the community that you would call new space. Then also, as said, OHB has a strong interest that you remain independent. You have seen in the slides before companies like Consol IR or others. What we are doing, if we then also decide to invest into you, is a minority share, because we don't want to kill your kind of work, your flexibility, your drive forward, and also the sometimes crazy-looking ideas that at the end then work, by taking you over. Yeah? But we also, with that one, we give you also, by end customer and also starting investment, the leverage to go then to the private venture capital market and get their multiple additional money, because you already have an end customer and a user of your systems then later. And that helps a lot then for the financing of companies. And then as said, we help you to overcome the hurdles of the space ecosystem, because there's still a lot of administrative, unfortunately. Not so much at ESA for the SME programs, but in the bigger one, it's still a big one. EU the same, and defense, of course, the same like that. So let's help us there. So therefore, the invitation to the Danish community here is, beside, of course, Bremen is nice to work, and it's not so far away. So if you want to work on the big satellites, come to Bremen. If you want to be working on technology and equipment and also services based on the big constellations, stay here, because the good thing is in ESA program, that's not an OHB Denmark, so all geo return goes to you and not to the LSIs. But also so to have on the other thing then, if you have technology solutions for the problems that we have or that our customers have, like OISPA, like European Commission, but also the governments, please come to us, and then we can look together to find the right technology roadmap for you, to find the right programs where to do with IPR protection, with non-IPR protection, and also for the funding sources. That could be national funding sources, that could be ESA, that could be EU, that could be venture capital or OHB own money. Or the other way around. If you think you have developed the holy shit for some specific things that we could need, please talk with us. Yeah, so there are people like myself. I'm a domain manager, so I'm responsible for the navigation and also partly for the SATCOM of the whole group. But there are also other people who are key account managers, like key account managers for ESA and things like that. We can help you to find the right people inside the OHB group, but also in the other groups, because it's true, TAS, Airbus, and ourselves are sometimes friends, sometimes enemies, sometimes frenemy, but we know each other. So if something is a good thing, we most likely also can forward you to get the break-even point also by addressing perhaps more than one LSI. So that comes to an end. You still find me till 3 o'clock upstairs, also afterwards in the panel. So thanks for your attention, and then hopefully we can work together. And
thank you. Now for the final speaker of the session, I hope it's okay that we push it a little bit into the coffee break. Hey, it's just coffee. And when the coffee break comes, it's served at the entrance hall. But before that, we welcome Kim Blauborg, Senior Director for Space Systems at Therma. Welcome, Kim.
Thank you. So thank you. With the headline here, Business Opportunities and Space in Space and Dual Use, I decided to take a very good success story of our own. You could almost say it maybe is a down-to-earth example, but really it's an into space example. But before I do that, I will also just give a very short introduction to Therma. There might be a few here who doesn't know Therma. So Therma is, by the way, the oldest of the companies that has just been presented. So we were founded in '49, even before ESA was ESA and OHB was started up, and EU was not there either. So the oldest. We started by doing thermometers and manometers, and that's why we are called Therma. We do have still one contract on thermometers, and that's actually an ESA contract. But otherwise, we are doing a lot of other things, like radars, command and control systems, aerostructures, avionics, and of course space. We are, I think today, the largest Danish aerospace and defense company. We are more than 2,000 employees today. The space history goes also way back to the 60s, where we were engaged in one of the very first European programs called ESRO4. This was launched in 1972, and with Therma equipment on, the so-called housekeeping and power switching unit, something that we still have a lot of expertise in, and I'll get back to that shortly. So that gives us more than 52 years of flight heritage. Today we have grown a lot. We are in 8 different countries, 9 different facilities. We are more than 400 people working with space every day. And we do anything from ground support equipment to control systems, services, and of course also flight equipment. Now, I'm going to talk a little bit about a very good case of ours. All the way back in 2015, we started to look at a new telecom project, and there was a need there for a so-called RTU, remote terminal unit. A remote terminal unit is a multifunctional unit. It interfaces to the onboard computer and then to a lot of the smaller equipment on board the spacecraft. It's sort of similar like to the docking station you have at your workplace. So the computer is connected to the docking station, and that is then connected to all the accessories, the monitors, and everything. So it's a bit like that functionality. We had been engaged in the ESA ExoMars mission in 2016 on the remote terminal power unit. So basically a housekeeping and power switching unit like we originally did in 1972. That was flown with the partial success of the ExoMars mission. And we really wanted to build on the expertise that we had there. And with this opportunity, we entered into a super close dialogue with our friends at OHB in Bremen. They were also looking for RTU functionality. They had the idea that if they went to Denmark and found some engineers who had been playing with Lego as a child, then they could get sort of a modular concept, so they could put bricks together and create exactly the functionality that they needed for this. So it had to be compact, it had to be scalable, and there was also a need to make it easily maintainable during the AIT. Even in the case something bad happened on the integration, that they could exchange some of the modules while still installed on the spacecraft. It was also important that it should be usable for, let's say, multiple purposes. Telecom, obviously, because that was one of the first opportunities we looked at, but also science, environmental missions, and defense. So we started looking at this, and this is some of the very first concept drawings of this. I also remember being in Bremen and actually on the whiteboard drawing small Lego bricks and naming the functions, what should we do with it. It didn't turn out to be Lego, but something that looked a little bit similar to that. On the way, we also got ESA on board, first with some artist funding and then later on with some GSTP as well. OHB, of course, played a significant role in trying to give birth to this product, defining what we should use, how we should specify this. One of the things that we discussed, which I think goes hand in hand with what has been just said, is that we also wanted to make this efficient. So not just the usual ESA way of thinking, we have to also think about how could we make this more cost efficient and cost-wise a very attractive solution. So we entered into a test campaign. About 2 years of work went into this, defining the solution, designing it, and testing and qualifying it at the end. It was intense, and it was not easy at all. We were extremely ambitious. And one of the reasons for that was that we wanted this to be a generic qualification. We wanted to cover all the missions and launchers known, and also those that we quite not did know at that time. So we tried to look ahead. And therefore we were really pushing the boundaries for what was possible with this. But in the end, we actually had a huge success with this. So it was a technical success, but it was also a very commercial success, and it was also a success seen from a dual-use point of view. For Tama, of course, as a supplier, but also for OHB as our first main customer, and also for the Danish SMEs that was actually supporting us in this. So today, the number of modules is more than 400 that we have produced, more than 50 units for quite a lot of missions and also for several customers, as it is today. About 20% of this is defense related. So I could provide here a long list here of the missions, including the military missions, but this is of course confidential, so I will not talk about this. But planetary defense is not confidential. So let me bring an example here. This is a nice picture of the Hera satellite during the integration, and actually you can see up there, there's one of our RTUs present. There is actually a second one on the spacecraft. This is the platform RTU. There's also a propulsion control RTU, but that cannot be seen here. So last year, I had the pleasure to go there with our lead engineer on this, to see the launch. It was fantastic to see the launch and I would say also to experience that all the effort that we had put into this was a success. He has just celebrated the first year in space, so congratulations to everybody who participated, including GomSpace. I think they're likely present in the room. We are indeed proud of having been an important supplier for this. And this, by the way, also led to 2 new contracts, one for a Common Interceptor and another one for Ramses, which is keeping us busy these days. Okay, so final remarks. Let's make it short and sweet. I'll not repeat what was likely said yesterday and also here. There is a strong need for a focus on defense as well in space and dual use. And from Tama's side, we are ready to be part of that. Our vision is to secure people through advanced technology. It goes hand in hand with what has already been said. So the big question is, for me, are we ready to this? I'm not going to answer that, because I'm not going to steal the thunder of the next panel discussion. But at least, as you can see here, the history shows that we can deliver on dual use. So thank you for listening.
Thank you, Kim. Always nice with a cliffhanger, especially since coffee break needs to be shortened down a little bit. So coffee is served at the entrance hall. We have a short break, but please be back here for 10:45, where we kick off the next session, where we will then answer the question that Kim posed. No more, no less. See you guys. Welcome back. Welcome back for this second session of the morning on business opportunities in space and dual use. Hope you had time for a coffee, although we were slightly late. People had a lot at heart on the hearts in the first presentations. How many attended the first session? Just to know. That's a good majority. So we'll, because that also means that we don't have to introduce most of the panelists, because they will be a repeat from the presentations in the first session, with the addition of two important profiles, and I'll get to that later. But prior to that, I'll just, and then I also don't need to introduce myself, which is also good. But the topic, at least, I will just mention, which is very close to everybody's hearts, is how do we create the best possible ecosystem for space and dual use, or defense, startups to further innovation and growth in Europe. And I think the presenters in the previous session set out some really, really good context for this, both with programs and initiatives on the public side and some experiences on the private side. We'll dive more into that. But to kick off the session, I'm very pleased to welcome Anne-Marie Falktoft, who's Deputy Director for the Ministry of Higher Education and Science, which is where the Danish Office for Space Activities, Rumkontoret, is located. She'll give an opening speech to kick things off. Very welcome, Anne-Marie. There you go.
Thank you very much. Yes, as I said, my name is Anne-Marie Falktoft. I'm the Deputy Director General of the Danish Agency for Higher Education and Science, responsible for everything we do within science, science-based innovation, and space. So I will give a talk about how we work as a public agency to promote opportunities for businesses within space, both in terms of directing funding towards businesses, but also in terms of coordinating with other public authorities in Denmark in sort of promoting space-based solutions that other public agencies use. The mandate that we are working under is given by the government, and the current mandate is given in the Danish strategy for space research and innovation, which was published last year. We've had Danish strategies on space before. In 2016, in 2021, we've had space strategies, but this is really the first strategy where there's taken a very strategic approach and taken very concrete initiatives to further develop space opportunities for Danish businesses and researchers in Denmark. The strategy sets out a very clear ambition, including ambitions for the investments from the public side in space. The minister was here yesterday and presented also the newest addition to this ambition, namely the ambition to have a historical high level of investments in space from the public side over the next 4 years. So this, the 10-year investment strategy that is set out in this strategy was really a new thing for us working on space, and I should add also a new thing for other research areas in Denmark with a 10-year strategy for how the investments should develop from the public side. The strategy has sort of 3 main milestones. And I will in particularly go through some of the, not taking too much time, but just speed talk through some of the initiatives relevant here, namely to how to promote the business opportunities. But overall, just to say that the strategy has 3 milestones, seeking to promote further the research and innovation system, to promote further our international cooperation, both EU, ESA, and globally, and finally, this focus on promoting business opportunities. So 9 initiatives in the strategy. It's all there on the website. You can read more about it if you haven't done already the day it was launched. But I will go in particularly through some of the initiatives focusing on the business side. So the first, just to give a few words on that, and also to link to the presentation by ESA earlier. ESA BIG Denmark has been established for some years, but as part of the strategy, we launched the new initiative in Denmark, the ESA Broker initiative, which is funding aimed at attracting new businesses into the space sector. So this is an important part of the new strategy, where businesses who are not yet in the space sector can receive support and guidance on how to, for example, engage with ESA and seek funding opportunities through that. Initiative 8, we also like to think of as an innovative part of our role as an agency, where we have sought to benefit from our good coordinating role in coordinating with other government agencies, where this is really an initiative seeking to develop the space-based market in Denmark through opening the eyes of other Danish agencies for how they can use space-based solutions in their work portfolio. So we've cooperated with the Danish Emergency Management Agency and ESA to have a call asking companies to suggest innovative solutions when it comes to addressing coastal marine monitoring and wildlife detection and alerts. The call has just been closed here in the middle of October. And earlier this year, we also had a call together with ESA and the Danish Agency for Land Use and Water in order to ask for, to call for businesses to suggest innovative services within the green transformation of agricultural land. So this is a really way in which we seek to promote a market for space-based solution used by public agencies in the future. Initiative 9 of the strategy really seeks to take a broad approach to how to promote opportunities for business in Denmark, and the most, I would say, concrete initiative is funding for Innovation Fund Denmark, the national program where both universities, businesses and other organizations can seek funding from Innovation Fund Denmark in developing space-based solutions, space-based research. Within these areas listed up here, so including also security and defense, as well as some of the deep tech areas, quantum and AI and so on. Yes. When we go to the international cooperation, just a brief commercial here for our international engagements worldwide. As a ministry, we have engaged with the Ministry of Foreign Affairs through some years now, establishing innovation centers worldwide, both sort of, Silicon Valley, Tel Aviv, Bangalore, so on. And several of these innovation centers located at the embassies, but focusing on helping Danish businesses, Danish public authorities, Danish researchers with connecting with the ecosystem in these sort of innovation hotspots. And several of these innovation centers also focus specifically on space in the areas in which these innovation ecosystems are also strong on space. You can see it with the little rocket on the slide. So if you want to connect to some of these ecosystems, please get in contact with us as part of our work with Innovation Center Denmark. Finally, of course, the big financial muscle, in addition to the program, in the new program Innovation Fund Denmark, for many years, of course, the financial muscle for promoting space research and innovation in Denmark has been ESA, and the next round of priorities is coming up very shortly. The Ministerial Council, where the political negotiations on the future budget of ESA for the next 3 years will take place in little more than a month. Many of you have been in contact with us to tell us which of ESA's programs are particularly important. Thank you very much for that. We really appreciate it. It's a big budget suggested by ESA, and there will be both sort of a decision at national level on how to invest from the Danish level, and then a political negotiation at the level of the ESA ministerial meeting on how in total to decide on the budget. And we will, once the ministerial council is over and we have the full overview, then we will sort of invite to a workshop where we can give more details on how the budget has landed. So that was all for me now. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Anne-Marie. That was quick. And always nice with some numbers on the slide. And also from here and from everyone, I think a wish that these numbers come true. We heard yesterday that the US outspends us 8 times. So if we multiply by 5, we're getting close. So with that said, this current panel session now will invite the panelists to the stage in 1 second. I'll just say that 2 words. One is that the title of this is How to Attract Private and Public Funding to Strengthen European Cooperation. And I think this is, so we've heard from the public side that hopefully money will be there. Now we try to figure out how we best can sort of create some boundaries to facilitate growth and opportunities for SMEs, also by attracting private capital, right? So please, panelists, come to the stage. I think we agreed not to introduce 4 of them because they were presenters from the previous session. So these were Fiammetta Diani, who's head of market downstream and innovation from USPA, who will hopefully be given 5x the amount of money to work with. Cross our fingers. Luca Del Monte, head of the commercialization department ESA, who will soon hopefully get triple the amount of money from Denmark to work with. Stefan Romer from OHB, and Kim Blauborg from Space Systems Therma, who had some interesting views on how to work with SMEs. And the 2 new in the class are Carsten Drachmann, CEO from GomSpace, and Ole Sinkjær from Innovation from Denmark. And I think to be sort of polite and give you sort of a heads up or a chance to assert yourselves, because the others have had their say, you should also. So a couple of minutes intro maybe for you guys to start out.
Thank you very much. My name is Ole Sinkjær. I'm from the Innovation Fund Denmark. My, you can say, obligation in the fund is to take care of our startup and SME programs, as well as taking care of our international collaborations. It's on the EU program, Eureka, the Nordics, and some bilateral countries. Just a short introduction to the Innovation Fund. We invest in research and innovation that strengthens competitiveness and address important societal challenges. And that includes, of course, the need for Europe to become more resilient. As a public foundation, we have dedicated tasks in the new Danish national strategy, and Marie just presented on space and in space research and innovation. One of our tasks in the strategy is to establish strategic national funding program with the objective to make capacity building in the ecosystem and stimulate strong private public partnerships. And the funding is intended for the entire chain from talent development and attraction to ambitious research and innovation projects with a high impact. And as you can say, the Danish Minister for Higher Education and Science announced yesterday that 400 million Danish crowns is prioritized for funding in the coming 4 years. And that's top up the allocation we had this year, which was 70 million to space through our partnership program, Grand Solution. And I can share from this first year that the interest and the quality of the projects we have received in the first call has been very high. And in fact, 31 consortia have applied with strong participation from both universities and industry, and we are very happy about that.
Thank you. Carsten?
Yeah, my name is Carsten Drachmann. I'm CEO at GomSpace. We have had some good discussions here. I'll start by saying the war of tomorrow is not won with the weapons of the past. And I think this is part of the whole defense discussion here. GomSpace is a leading provider of satellite platforms in Denmark, and one of the leading suppliers in Europe and globally for satellite platforms. We've been around for about 20 years. We do commercial solutions, we do solutions for defense. We already have a lot of technology that's flying, it's working today, and I think the last couple of days here has really shown that there is a need. The last couple of years has shown there is a need for space. And GomSpace is right there with existing technology, and also very happy to see all the investments that are coming from our minister here in Denmark for science and higher education. We're about 250 people. We live up here in Aalborg, but we also have offices around the world, including Asia, Luxembourg, bigger office, US, etc. And I have to say, dear EU representatives here, we sell more stuff outside of the EU than we do in EU, and that's not good. So we have to start talking about how we get the EU spending up, not just the funding, but also start buying. Thank you.
You're welcome. Now, this leads very well into a point that I discussed with several people at the bar yesterday. A bar is always good to gather some input, at least I feel that. So the let's say almost unanimous opinion was that if just the public sector would, let's say, take inspiration from the US and NASA and become a better buyer of products and services instead of R&D sponsoring, all would be good, more or less. So this would make companies more investable and attract capital. So right now it seems like, I was really happy to hear Luca's comments that this maybe also stems from, let's say, a history of ESA being a research and development organization and moving towards the sort of commercialization, your topic, of course, and moving into, let's say, a mode of operation and thinking where you can buy projects that are not yet ready, and then so to give, let's say, companies contracts instead of R&D funding. And so as an investor, I can personally say that I would really like that, because it sort of corroborates that there is a demand at some point if they perform well. Now, the bet I take as an investor in a company is that somebody will perform well and do well. If they don't, that's my problem. But if they do well and provide products and services, it would be great if there was a demand for these. And right now, it's very difficult to assess this demand because let's say, the customer side is wrong. So this was a long intro, but it's really a question for everybody around the table, and I'd love to start with you, Luca. So, is this something you also see? I mean, what do you personally think it would take to attract more private capital and to make the public a better buyer? You are on the way, I'm sure, but maybe a few words. Yeah.
Now, thanks a lot for this long introduction, because you were touching upon certain very critical point. First of all, it's true that in Europe we are learning from the lessons of NASA, the experience of NASA. It's certainly true. I've myself been extensively traveling and interviewing my colleagues at NASA, let's say, to better understand. But we are doing this in our own way, I must say. So it's not exactly a replica of what was done by them. But certain things are useful to learn. For instance, NASA decided to introduce in the panel that assessed the projects, for the very first time back in 2002, a venture capitalist. So a venture capital fund manager, professional, was introduced alongside the NASA technical officers to assess and evaluate the projects, not exclusively from a technical perspective, but also from a business perspective. So that's something that we have started doing now, not exactly in the same way, but we are, let's say, assessing ourselves. So we are hiring now at ESA people with capacity of assessing business plan. So that's certainly one thing. But one thing that NASA got wrong, and they kindly admit, is the fact that in the first stage, let's say, of this new service type of procurement, companies didn't get any guarantee of getting a public contract, an anchor tenancy. So there was no guarantee whatsoever given to the company. And this, of course, created issues for the company itself to raise capital on the private side, because there was no contract, no guarantee, no perspective assured. So coming now to your question, I think, what should we do to attract more and more private capitals? I think there is no secret ingredients or magic ingredients. Contracts.
I'm writing.
Contracts. That's it. Let's say, giving a stability, a perspective of a market. There is no secret there. I mean, when I hear that, well, there is a different mindset between European and American investors, certainly there is. I mean, when I talk to European investors, they all ask about risks. What are the risks? What are the risks? When I talk to the American one, they say, what are the opportunities? I mean, this is a good opportunity. I put money. So that's certainly a big difference. I agree. But in the end, when they do the math is the same across all over the world. And the math includes contracts. Where are the contracts? How big is the market? Where is the stamina of the team? Where is the team, the group? So here, where we help as an institution, as ESA, is that we sit in the advisory board of these guys, of this venture capital, and we tell them, we advise them about the sides of the market that we see. We reassure them about the technology. So actually, we ask our technologies about that. And whenever it's possible, but this is really in the hands of our member states, is the fact that we try to provide also anchor tenancy contracts.
Let me take the contracts to Carsten, maybe to get a rebuttal there. So how do you see the situation?
First of all, again, praising now the Danish minister, who we are putting a lot more money in as the Danish nation into ESA and EU funds. That's great. But I'll go back to, and I agree with you, Luca, contracts. I've also worked in a venture capital world, private equity. There is no business case unless you can prove that somebody's going to buy this in the end. And I think actually right now we're really weak in Europe. Draghi report says it. I think it's great with all the funding, but the funding is a politically decided thing. Money goes out somewhere. So you have to spend a lot of energy, whether you're small or big, to try and get the money. Usually the bigger guys are better at getting the money because they have the capacity. It's not okay. We need to have some actual spending, because you can't build a business unless you actually have customers and contracts. Yes, we need to innovate, and yes, when it's early stage, we have to have some funding. And of course, there is a purpose for that. But in the end, somebody has to buy it, and you need the EU member states to start stepping up and start spending the money. And we do start seeing it. Germany is an example. Finland is starting to invest. It's starting to come, but it's really slow. It's really slow. The drones are already here. We haven't even started discussing what we're going to do about it, other than some political statements which come out, which is great. Drone wall, that's fine, but what, right? Should we start actually getting some contracts on the table? And we know we are professional companies. We understand how to run a contract. We understand how to innovate together with a customer, not with a grant, but with the intention of building a business. Because in the end, it's the size of the industry, the space industry in Europe, that's going to determine our success, not the individual grants. It's a total spending and it's a total usage. So let's go.
Yes. And usually you also tag on, especially in Denmark, please buy some stuff, right?
I was trying not to say that. Denmark,
I'll say it
let's start spending. This is not good.
Fiammetta, maybe switching over to you, I would like maybe to continue, in principle the same question, but taking a little bit from Luca and also from Carsten, and something I heard, which is let's say leveling the playing field between smaller and larger. That was one of the things I heard you touch upon, and I think one of the other things that was mentioned, was it Kim or Stefan, was the penalties in the EU system. I think it was you, Stefan, with respect to how to run EU projects. So those might be sort of aspects that would be really interesting to tag along to this question, if I may.
Yeah, thanks. Indeed, first of all, let me say one thing. We are anchor customer, so the EU is big anchor customer for European space ecosystem. We heard before OHB explaining how the game changer was Galileo for them to become the group that they are today. So now the question is how we bring these anchor customers also to smaller scale companies, to startups, to new space and so on. And there we also did already some steps as European Union, for example, the contributing mission of Copernicus. So instead of going and buying satellites and dictate how it should be, we buy data directly from new space companies. Some of them, they became them bigger companies and they engage in defense because they participated in the contributing mission of Copernicus. So this is already happening. The EU has also a long-term perspective because we have our 7 years cycle that give also a lot of stability and attract private investors as well. If I look at the capital side, so with the European Investment Fund, we supported a set of VC that are now investing in space. They were not doing before, so that's also something new. We still see that there is a lot of early stage funding in Europe. We think that we need also big tickets to make these companies grow. And so we will work in the next MFF also to continue this, but with larger tickets, so that the companies, when they become mature, they don't have to go abroad, especially in the US, to get their growing funding. And many companies are SME. SME are not attractive for venture capitalists, let's be clear. So that's not the type of investment they look for. So on that, we have also to work with commercial banks. They mobilize their funding, the more normal funding, our savings, to fund SME in space and not only, let's say, very attractive few companies that are attractive for venture capitalists. So it's a bit a group of things that we need to do to attract the private funding. It's not one single thing that we need to do, but we believe that what we can do as public sector is really to do this first step. So some companies, they really came to us and said, okay, if I don't have a first contract or something that bless me from the public side, I will not be able to go to my private customers. So this is exactly what we will try to do even more. And allow me another thing, because there is upstream. So here we speak a lot of upstream, but there is also downstream. So there are many SME companies out there that do the application of the space solution. And there, it's a bit, I mean, it's a different game, no? So there, what we can do as public, we can aggregate the demand. For example, now, if you are a SME in Denmark, you did a nice tool for energy company in Denmark. It's very difficult to sell it, I don't know, in Portugal or in Bulgaria and so on. So we would like to aggregate the demand to set also quality standard for this kind of services so that we can have a better market also for the downstream and so attract also the private investors. I hope I tackled your...
I think you did, and I would like, I mean, I really like your point that you've grown from 4 investors in your network to 40. I recently we made a survey how many are actually active in the European space and defense sector. It was something we did ourselves because there was actually difficulty getting precise numbers in that. But there's around 277 VC investors active in the European space and defense sector, so in total. So you still have some really interesting funds to go for. So please do. Moving from that, I think maybe it would be good to hear Tama, because the other side of that is so now we get some funding, but in principle you have funding. I mean, you're operating, you're profitable. And I think you both touch a little bit upon it. How do you see SMEs or startups maybe even? Are they annoying and should be killed because they at some point become competitors to you, or do you see them as positive contributions that you'd actually like to help? Really?
It's a good question. No, they're not annoying. but sometimes the circumstances, it imposes so much risk in a program. Not necessarily just penalties, which could be very bad for us, but general risk. So maybe it's not attractive for us to I would say, engage with them in many of the programs. But there are other, I would say, solutions, products where we have engaged with SMEs and had a huge success. One of them being the Aalborg company over here, so Space Inventor, for example. on the Star Trackers a long time ago. We made a collaboration with them. We made a super project. I think we would not have been here where we are today without that collaboration from an SME. So it can also be successful, for sure. And we would like to bring more on board, for sure.
Maybe continuing directly on to Stefan on that point.
Perhaps, let's say, taking point from you that for venture capital people, SMEs were not so attractive. That came from the history how we made space programs in Europe. Because in the past, as we have also said in the last days, the institutional customers were buying infrastructure, not services. That means it was also a low profit market. That's why there was the need for strong ESA-based or EU-based technology support program to develop the technology to use it then in the infrastructure. If we now go to a more service-oriented approach, like for instance used in US, that's also the industry can decide where they take the risk and also to have then the return of invest via the services, because it's not longer slices into pieces, because it's about services, so end-to-end architecture, then also it's much easier to take venture capital from the market or investment into SMEs for the development, because then you get your margins into the services. Another point that I missed a little bit also here is we are all talking about money in the moment, but there's another point where especially European Union is extremely important. And this is a regulatory and legal leveling of the European landscape. Because in the moment, if I, for instance, in my domain, in SATCOM and navigation, if I want to do something on RF spectrum from space, I need to talk with 26 different regulatory bodies to address a European market of 400 million, where I have in US, I talk with one and have 400 million. And also, they have different meanings, so over the one country, I am allowed to use the one frequency band, or the other not the same. And that's also the thing like that. And also, we have now this draft of the European Space Act. For my feeling, a little bit still too less, or let's say too much uncontinuities in, so we are not completely clear how the things should be established, and also focusing a lot on licensing and space traffic management, but this is in the moment not our real problem to say. Yeah? One of the biggest problems we face at the VRC 27, there's no one in Europe who have ownership of FR1 frequencies for D2D, for instance. Yeah? And this is, of course, if you are talking about drones, navigation warfare, autonomous driving, whatever, we need FR1 frequencies. So it's a big request to EU, also via the governments, to support the industry to get back the frequencies. Yeah? Because FR2 and things like that, this is Iris Square, it's mid-late 30s and things like that, that it will be going into commercial and things like that. But the regulatory environment to create is nearly as important as a pure finance point.
Super good point. You jumped the gun a little bit because that was my next question, but maybe just tying the knot a little bit to you, Ole, concluding all this, but maybe adding to the fact, I like your distinction between infrastructure and the stuff you build on top of the infrastructure. So it immediately, to my mind, it came, okay, who builds the roads and who builds Uber, right? And so, and I think maybe, I don't know if that puts any context that you could, but Innovation Fund, you invest in very early stuff and moving to the next level. Maybe, what's your view on this?
First of all, I think when we're looking into the Danish environment or ecosystem, in some sense it's not very big. For some, it's also new to enter space and defense. And I think one of the things some companies struggle with is to understand the environment, the new demand, how to address a prime regulation. And I think we see an ambition could be to prepare some acceleration setups, which in fact could prepare both startups but also SMEs who are, work in dual use who are interested to work in this new field, but it seems like regulation, all things they have to live up to, it's very complicated. So perhaps that could be an important thing to look at.
I think that actually you sort of almost answered my next question, which is because we had some perspectives and we don't have all day, which would be nice. So we touched upon, okay, what would it take to attract private capital and get these companies to grow? But the flip side is, what is it that prevents them from growing? And I think so. There are some impediments you're naming. So maybe from you again, Ole, some what do you see as some structural problems? I mean, so you mentioned the regulatory, which seems to be maybe a barrier where it's not a question that you compete on merit, but on the size of your legal staff, because you can deal with this regulation, or the geo return, or do you see other areas where we just need to step up as politicians and making better playing field?
I think it's important that from the start you can see the market. You have to be close to a market as quick as possible. I think that's the most important, even for an early startup. So we have to design the infrastructure in a way that supports this journey. And then I think both ESA and the EU and the different national, you can say, strategies has to be coupled a little better. We have to bridge each other and not make it too complicated for startups and even large companies to navigate in this system. So that could be something to address.
Maybe jumping to you, Carsten. What are the main impediments? Stuff like level playing field, geo return. We discussed contracts. Don't mention that again. But what else do you see?
First of all, of course, we need to continue to have investment in SMEs for innovation. There's no doubt about that. I think what you're pointing to has to be a market is an absolute key. The more you can even see a customer at the end of the tunnel, you're more likely to also invest for sure. Then it's also bringing things to market, which can be difficult. That's where we need to partner SME to mid-cap to higher cap, so that the ones that are more advanced in the sales process are actually able to help bring this to market. I want to bring, though, going back to, I'm not going to say contracts, I said it anyway, didn't I? Yes. So we need more. Okay. I think there's an element of, I'm not going to say the company, but there's another company out there that's building something they call the Autonet. How are they doing that? They're actually going out and pre-selling service contracts for communication. Through that, they are getting their own private funding, so they are raising the capital. It's a very good example of and it also comes to national spending, you actually start committing to contracts, private capital will come. Some of it will be venture capital, but it's not just about venture capital, it's also about the private equity where the bigger investors can come in, but there needs to be a business case in the other end. And if it always starts inside out with some grant somewhere and then we have a big apparatus that needs to agree on who gets what, it's not the fastest way. But commitment to contracts, commitment to services is where it's going to drive any kind of business. Give me any business that has a promise of some contracts. We'll build it, we'll build the technology, we'll get the people, we'll get the money. It's not a problem. The problem is to get the commitment to actually buy. And that's a key we need to drive.
Maybe jumping to you, Luca, because you represent the organization that has had some discussion around geo return. So that has been mentioned as one impediment. And then there's the level playing field. Maybe some comments on that from your side?
Yeah.
What else is there?
Yeah, but before there, I mean, I was reflecting about this question of the attractiveness of our sector for VC or investors in general, even late stage PE, and the question of the regulation. Because it's true, we have been saying this for years, that let's say a Far West type of environment does not reassure investors, that's for sure. At the same time, so let's say this is an extreme where we are a little bit today. And then there is the other extreme, but it's an extreme, and I'm not suggesting at all that we should go there. That is to say that in the US, they are so good at innovate, the Chinese emulate, and we are so good at regulate. So we are the champion of regulation, even when we do not innovate. And there is a risk to suffocate, choke, let's say, innovation with over-regulation. So that's an extreme. We have to strike the good balance in between these things. Because, say, now the EU Space Act on one side, but there is a right and correct proliferation of national space law that are popping up in the major stakeholders in Europe. And they are in certain ways similar. For instance, they are imposing certain requirements for companies, for operators that want to become players in the new space arena, including, for instance, the need to contract an insurance. Now, it's correct. I mean, you are operating in space, you become a liability, you may enter in collision with other assets, whatever. But then this has a cost. To contract an insurance has a cost that maybe for a large system integrator is negligible, for a startup could make the difference between life and death. So let's say, I'm saying it's correct, but we have to strike the right balance, and I don't have the solution there. It's a super difficult exercise that is for real expert in that, not for me. But I just want to attract the point that regulation is good, over-regulation can be very, very bad, and unfortunately we have a long track of records in over-regulation in Europe. Thinking about AI, for instance. Yes. We are probably the least innovative region in the world in AI, the least, but number one in terms of regulation of AI. We have the most advanced regulatory framework for AI. So let's try not to have the same thing happening in space. And when it comes to, let's say, mostly VC, why they are a bit wary about space. In most cases, when I ask this, and they say, well, maybe because it's capital intensive or because it's long lead time, say no. I mean, biomedical is even more capital intensive than space, and the times sometimes are even longer because of certification regulation. Still, they invest in biomedical, and still, yet they are worried about space. So the point is the lack of history. The lack of good track records, good exit story that can be told. I mean, space is very young as an investor for the investors, so there is no track record of success. There are no good, not many, let's say, good exit that can attract and can reassure the investors. Even, I would say that all the story of private investment in space in Europe started in a period where money was for free. So this may have led some investment to overpay. And now that it's time for the exit, 7, 8, 12 years, we are coming. It's now the moment. Unfortunately, all the rates are going high. And let's say there are some PE that have difficulties in finding an IPO or a good exit again. So this is not a good message for the ecosystem, I would say, just to be clear. So.
No, but I think it actually touches upon that. There's a question from the audience that's rated way above all the others, and that is that we don't have an innovation problem in Europe, we have a scale-up problem. How can space programs create top line?
Yeah, Samantha was hinting at that.
Exactly, and I think
she's totally right. I mean, I would say that today, if you have, let's say, a relatively good idea, sound project between seed and round A, probably you find what you have. And we have 70 more investors in our network, which are, let's say, investors not specialized exclusively in space, but they have at least several significant investment in their portfolio for space, and these are all ready to consider that. Problem is, when you go for round B, round C, round D, so you are looking for that 50 million ticket, And well, in Europe there is no one. Let's be very, very wide.
You need
You
the
go to the
customers,
US
Luca.
and
You need somebody to buy, then it's come easily.
A
That is
50
the key.
million, a 50 million ticket in the US is it's
Nothing.
a seed sometimes. Consider it's nothing.
Yeah, but I think I mean, first of all, you need some customers, but the question is also, I mean, this actually cuts across all sectors. That's not just space. We're bad at late stage funding in Europe, and we need to get our pension funds involved to make sure that some of their funds can actually be invested into Europe. But that's a separate topic for a separate.
We are working on that. We are working exactly on pension funds, on the patient type of investment.
I would love to hear more about that. And because you could also say, once you have late stage capital, actually early stage capital flows. Because we all look at this, okay, do we invest in this? Well, yes, but what's about the next round? Right? So. But this was a good seek to you, if you met maybe some comments on this, but also adding that here, how can space programs create top line for SMEs? And I think it's actually a good question. So so this is a little bit back to your customer, or it is a customer. So that programs actually allow people to make money on this. So that we don't sponsor R&D, but we sponsor projects that make these companies really profitable. To mutual benefit. Do you have any views on this?
Yeah, indeed. So the effort, so first of all, going back to the bigger ticket, indeed, I think that's what we have to face in the next, for us, financial cycle. So to, not just to fund the innovation and the early stage, but also to have these big tickets. And also increase our anchor tenancy, how we can be customers, because that's very clear. So this will be one of the focus for the next MFF, what we want to do. Already Cassini was born to simplify things, because we are well aware, I mean, that's public money, is the most, let's say, observed, audited public money we have in the world, probably, in the budget of the EU. So we have to deal with the rules that we have, and we cannot do miracles. But I think we already quite simplified many things, so we will come up with the new procurement tools to make it easier in the future. But of course, miracles still we don't do, so we will have to comply with a certain set of rules. And what to say more? I think we tackle all the main topics on the table today that we wanted to say. Maybe defense is the last one. So defense is a good market for many of our, let's say, new space companies and startups, but it's not obvious, no? So it's not obvious to play in this field. We will need also to equip them with the right tools, with the compliance, to this more difficult market. So there we can also play the role as public sector facilitators, or helping the companies to be up to speed for the challenge we are in front.
But maybe that's a good seek to Tama or Kim. I mean, what to add to that? I mean, so we started out with impediments, regulations, geo return, whatnot, and then we jumped to big capital, and now we end up in defense. I don't know quite how to tie the knot, but I'm sure you will have some perspectives on this move from civilian space to more defense-related space, and how this has changed things in the regulatory environment, or whether you see other challenges for companies in that space. We're running a little late, but I'll still, because you and Stefan needs to complete this round, so let's give it up.
Okay, let's make it short and sweet then. So first of all, TAMA is also owned by a pension fund, so this is happening.
That is true.
Which, by the way, all of you, all the Danish citizens is part of. So, one of the key things was in the first question. I would like to comment on that: the scalability. Let's imagine that a crazy thought. Somebody in Germany says we have 30 billion euros to spend on defense. So we will look around in Europe. There's maybe a German LSI. Say, okay, can we manage this?
We cannot swallow it. Yeah.
Can we scale for this? Because it's such a huge project. And then they may look at us as a potential supplier. And are we ready for this also? So if we have to make this move, then I think also from the industry, we have to take more risks to prepare for this. Because I don't believe that commonly we are quite there yet.
was maybe a good seek to you, Stefan. You get the final words of the panel.
Let's clear, yes, also for OHB it's impossible to swallow this in so short time, so by the workforce and things like that. But I say the defense market and also the shift from infrastructure to service gives us some opportunities also to go into new ways to work together and things like that. So unfortunately, Luca, I need to disagree with one statement from you that it's easier for an SME, from LSI to pay for insurances or 50% co-funding because it's percentage. If I'm allowed with an institutional stakeholder to only make 8% profit and need to have my hourly rates agreed, it's very difficult for it's only the absolute amount of money that is bigger. In the defense market and in the service market, it's especially there's not this low margins and things like that, so that we can then reinvest into new developments and things by our own or with the help of venture capital and things like that. So it started with the LSIs already, everyone knows. So KKR is a minority shareholder of OHB. With that one, where we get venture capital in, that we also handed through strategic partners and also on things. But we are here in the moment really at a game changer, and this raising up of the space defense market, but also the EU market, is a challenge for the classical LSIs, but also the supply chain. And this is where are big chances and big challenges. Yeah? And the more flexible the ecosystem is, the less it's burdened with administrative things, with paperwork, the faster we can react to the needs of the European stakeholders and to protect the environment and the citizen.
I think those were, okay, Carsten, you get the final word, but it's short then.
It will be very short. We need to innovate for the future, that's clear, and we are gearing up. But what about the last 20 years of innovation and investment that has also been? So I'm going to repeat, we have to start buying in EU because it seems like an epiphany now. Oh, we need to innovate, let's put some more money out. Yeah, and I'm not going to use the effort, but we already did that for 20 years. So let's start buying what we've already innovated. And I'm sure there's a bright future where we need more innovation. I'm all for it, but start buying what we've already innovated and stop stalling.
I think those were good final words. If I might quote our Prime Minister, buy, buy, buy.
There you go.
And so we extend that from defense to space, which is equally urgent. I think one takeaway from this conference is that we need to start considering space as urgent as space because it's an integral part of our common security. I've also taken away that despite slight differences in interpretation, I think there's super good movement in the various systems that people have a common agenda that we all want the same. More efficient, let's say, legal rule sets, maybe even changing the geo-return. You conveniently didn't reply on that, but and also the fact that people know that we need to buy stuff and to become, let's say, an area where we can have scale-ups that go through the roof, and so we can have a mini SpaceX or maybe even a maxi SpaceX in Europe at some point. It will probably take a few years, but let's go there. Why don't you give the panel a big hand? I think hopefully you got something out of this. The final words I was told was that there is lunch now in the upper foyer, and also, please note, it's a long lunch break, and one of the reasons for that is that there are some, I think it was 31 really cool posters and demos showing innovation from university environments, a lot of Denmark, but I think also some international contributions. But I'm sure there's some really cool stuff. Take a look at it. They've worked hard to make some cool stuff. Have a great lunch. Thank you for attending.